listener production.
Hey, it's Antoinette Lattouf with the Weekend Briefing, and it's where we hit pause on the headlines and instead I get to dive into the life of someone fascinating who's shaking things up. So if you're burnt out, anxious or quietly freaking out about climate change, you're not alone. And if you've gone the other way, if you've gone full ostrich, avoiding the doom and gloom altogether, well, the good news is today's guest has something for you too. Natalie Kyriacou, who picked up an Order of Australia for her environmental work and also just happened to create an app for kids that's basically Angry Birds if the birds were endangered and the fun was in rescuing them, is here to unpack it all with me. What we do if the planet is cooked and so are the leaders meant to save it. Well, Natalie says we revel in nature's wonder. We laugh at its oddities, yes, even the kinky animal sex story kind. And we work to get people more connected with the wild world before it's gone. And later in the show, Helen Smith joins me for the weekend list, and that's our cheat sheet for what to eat, watch, see and do. But first, the funny, the fervent, Natalie Kyriacou. Natalie, welcome to the Weekend Briefing.
Thank you for having me.
So you studied journalism, as I understand, but you ended up as an environmentalist. And I'm curious as to whether it was a quarter-life crisis or you decided on an even less lucrative career path that had even more existential doom.
Yeah, I like to choose the career paths that don't pay and that cause me a lot of stress. So I started in journalism and then I did my master's in international relations. But I wanted to be a journalist reporting on human rights abuses and environmental crimes, but then I got sidetracked.
And so what's the best journalism skill then? Because I suspect you have some still rolled up your sleeve for convincing people to care about the environment when it's something they'd much rather ignore.
I think I've been learning more and more about communication since being in the environmental sector because I'm learning that we have sort of created this environment where anybody that talks about climate change, you can see other people's eyes glaze over. And so it's helped me find stories, actual stories of individuals, of communities, fun facts about species, talking more to children, to find ways to actually go beyond just the facts to highlighting real world experiences. I think that resonates with people more. So I guess the combination of journalism and working in a space that, you know, everybody wants to switch off from, which is environmentalism, has really just helped me be more creative and talk to communities a bit more.
Why do you think everybody wants to switch off?
Because there's a couple of things. One, this has not been a great few years, especially this year. There is terrible things happening all over the world. But the environmental movement, this has been one of the largest and slowest moving movements in that we have known about the impacts of climate change and nature destruction for, a century. And there has been mass marketing campaigns to deny the science and so on. And now we're in this situation where people are feeling like they can't do anything. They know that, just recycling, their milk cartons isn't going to address the scope of the environmental challenges. They know that there's really systemic issues at play that are driving environmental destruction. And so I think they feel a little bit helpless and probably just a bit sick of the headlines that are constantly telling them how terrible the world is and how bad climate change is and how their futures are being sacrificed. And so I can understand that when they feel helpless, they just check out. They don't know what to do.
Well, you were feeling helpless, but that didn't stop you from launching My Green World while you were doing your master's. Am I right in saying that you sold your car to fund a conservation app?
Yeah, I did. I sold my car. I put my life savings into it, which actually wasn't that much. I did garage sales. So I stole things from my family members to sell at garage sales and markets to raise money so that I could build this charity and this mobile game app which allowed kids to become conservationists and supported charities all over the world. I went all in and I was doing my university degree, my master's at the time, and it was meant to just be a passion project, but I was just on a mission. I was obsessed with it.
And so tell me about My Green World.
It started off as an app. I was getting sick of seeing all of these apps. This is 12 years ago. I was getting sick of seeing all of these apps like Angry Birds that were really addictive and kids were just completely consumed by them and there just wasn't at that time. There wasn't really any other apps that allowed kids to learn and have a positive impact on the world. So I started drawing up this idea for an app where kids could build their own world. It was sort of like Sims, but in the world they could rescue different species, they could clean up oil spills, and they could compete with other kids around in pop quizzes, and each animal in the app or each species represented a real life charity that we could support. So we had 18 partner charities, and it became quite popular and kids loved it. And I'd get emails from parents saying that their kids had been teaching them about, orangutan endangerment and palm oil. And so then I almost built my charity around it, which had education resources that were curriculum aligned for kids to learn more about wildlife and the environment. But the whole aim was to make these issues fun and accessible. And I put an 8-year-old on my advisory board. It was very much youth-led and just trying to get kids kids were already engaged, but trying to get kids more engaged in this with the hope that it would have a bit of a ripple effect with their parents and teachers as well.
Speaking of parents and the fun that kids had, how much fun did your parents have when they realised things were missing from their house because you'd sold them?
I was such a nightmare. I think I tried to sell. My sister had this surfboard and rollerblades, and there were a few interventions, but even just little things. I became really annoying because it was like I'd been awakened, and nobody else had been awakened yet. So I was this superior being, and I would sit down for dinner with Mum and Dad, and Dad would ask me if I wanted ice cream, and I'd be like, "Do you know palm oil is in ice cream? And thousands of orangutans are being killed. Did you want to kill orangutans?" And so I was really, really annoying. Yeah. And thankfully, I partially moved on from that stage. But for the most part, my parents were just really supportive. They thought that I was ruining my career and any future hope, but I think they kept that to themselves. Well,
they mustn't have thought you were ruining your career too much, because you got an Order of Australia, an OAM, before 30, while I imagine everyone else your age, your friends were either backpacking or getting married.
Yeah.
You were getting an Order of Australia.
Yeah, that was quite a shock. That, and there was also an article that came out in Neos Cosmos, like a Greek Cypriot newspaper, and that was the point that my grandma and family knew that that I worked, that I had a job.
She's not just a thief.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think they just described me as unemployed but passionate for a long time. And then oh no, she does things, because they didn't really understand what I did. But yeah, I was 29, and I remember my dad called me and he said, "There's a letter here. Should I open it? It looks fancy." And he opened it and he started reading it. And oh God, I'm going to get emotional thinking about it. And he just started crying on the phone, and I just could not believe it. It was just, I still can't believe it a little bit. But the whole going to these events, and it was really exciting for me because there weren't many young people receiving that honour. There also weren't many environmentalists, and it was a great opportunity for me it just gave me more potential for impact. People write back to my emails more now.
Yeah,
you have
with
an
those
OAM.
letters.
Yeah, you put the letters at the end, they'll write back to you more. And so I was able to use it to try to further the impact I was having. And then if I nominate other people for an OAM, that my letters give them a bit more weight for that nomination. So it is quite a privilege if you can use it in the right way, I guess.
So, as you've mentioned, the environment's demise is well documented, it's widely spoken and written about. What did you want to bring to the narrative differently in writing your first book?
A few things. One is that I wanted to reach outside of my echo chamber. I know that most of the people I talk with on a day-to-day basis, they get it. They believe in climate change. They know it's bad. Some of them are doing something about it. Some of them are trying to switch off a little bit from it. I wanted to go beyond just talking about climate change, because I don't think that this is just a climate change issue. This is an issue related to human rights and the environment. We are talking about the environment as a whole, which is nature, the thing that allows us to breathe and to eat and puts food on our tables. It, builds our homes. It ensures that we have livelihood. So it is the foundation of life on Earth. And so I don't see it. Climate change is one facet, or the climate is one facet of that. And so I wanted to make it clear that this wasn't a climate change book. This is about it's about bringing stories to the world that highlight environmental destruction, but also highlight how connected humans or communities are to the environment. And I wanted to talk about things like how studies on great apes have led to a better understanding of our social relationships or human social relationships today. So the intent really was to, yes, highlight the extinction crisis that we're experiencing and climate change and human rights abuses, but tell it through these really quirky tales that could appeal to a mainstream audience and show the world that, or show the 5 people that read it that they actually are really connected with nature. And I think there is a story in there for everyone. It's very quirky.
Speaking of quirky, your book has stories like, a drunk moose and an economist and fish with herpes. Is it laughter that keeps you engaged and hopeful?
Yeah, big time. Laughter. There is, I think, a lot of humour. Well, I find it funny. I don't know if other people do, but humour and talking to kids and also talking to some of the conservationists or Indigenous communities or young people that are doing the most extraordinary things for nature, and also just having the wildest experiences. Like through work, I have conversations with people who are talking about how there was one of their staff members crying because they were running down the lobby and they spilt elephant semen on the floor. I mean, this is work. This is work chat. And so there's always, I'm in a bit of a bubble, but I am exposed to these stories of just extraordinary people doing amazing things for the world and really, really caring and doing it for very little money.
And there is something at the start of your book that I haven't seen elsewhere. It's like an apology to your readers. You start off with saying, you might be offended. It sounds like a polite warning from a stand-up, like from a comedian. Why did you feel the need to warn people that they were potentially going to be insulted?
I did do that. I genuinely, when I was writing the book or starting to write the book, I genuinely just didn't think anybody would read it. So I took there was a lot of freedom in that. I wrote what I actually really thought, and I didn't care so much who I offended. Whereas usually if I was on social media, I might temper what I say a little bit just to have, the best impact. There are things in the book that are, I don't know, for some people they might find a little bit confronting. I do talk about herpes and clitoris, and none of those things are offensive, but I insinuate that some people might not have nice personalities I don't think it's a rude book, but also people get offended over everything. Yeah. So it was just me trying to temper expectations, I guess.
Do you think, though, at this kind of juncture and given the dire state of the environment, that we need to spend too much time on forewarnings or being polite? Or is that just it's your personal approach?
Yeah, it's probably a combination of both. It's my personal approach, but also I was very conscious that I'm trying to reach an audience who don't think like me. I'm trying to reach outside of my own audience. I'm just at the point now where I feel like we know there is a group of us, big group of us who believe in this, who want this, but equally there are people that have completely either checked out or just not engaging with this topic or don't even believe in climate change. And so it's trying to add a little bit of my personality. But it was much worse, the original draft. They asked me to write a prologue and talk about myself and why I'm credible to write the book. And I started off by saying that I spent my early 20s getting rejected from every job I ever applied for, and on one occasion a job I didn't apply for, and then spent about 500 words talking about how useless I am. And the publishers were like, oh, okay, this isn't quite what we had in mind.
Yeah, it'd be interesting in this era of echo chambers whether that sort of thing is, I guess, puts a hand out to people and draws them in rather than makes them feel alienated. And I'd imagine that's what you were trying to establish.
I hope so. And I'm sure I'll find out. People will let me know.
They will.
Or they won't let me know, and that means nobody's read it. So
the 5 people, your dad and your dad and his mate.
Yeah.
You write about bird watchers having a scandalous underbelly.
Yeah.
Tell me more.
Oh.
Should we be buying popcorn or like binoculars to get in on it?
Oh, both. The bird watching community is amazing. So bird watching, it's like the Dungeons and Dragons of sport. You know? They are pretty widely mocked, but also they are the most incredible and inspiring subset of humanity, in my opinion. In the US, 1 in 3 people is a bird watcher.
Oh.
And they drive so much money into economies. Colombia and Costa Rica are starting to try to factor bird watching into their economic models because bird watchers bring so much money into their economy, basically through they travel their tourism boosts because they're all flocking. They're flocking to these biodiverse regions to watch birds. But the communities, they're really unique. So it's birders. You don't say bird watchers, you say birders.
Okay.
Yeah. And they're very intense. So you've got these like global birder days where hundreds of thousands of people from around the world spend 24 hours straight trying to, find this one particular bird. You have competitions. You have big listers. So big listers are people with the biggest lists, like the amount of birds that they have seen.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's quite incredible because they are essentially citizen scientists. So they've given the world a huge amount of data on not just birds, but ecosystems, the health of ecosystems, and then by extension, the health of communities that people live in. There was this sort of rumble in the birdwatching community because there was one guy who had just reached 10,000 birds on his list, which is huge. Nobody has ever reached that. It's a very big deal. But then at the same time, this sort of dark horse came in and claimed that he'd also reached 10,000 birds. And so I went on the birdwatching community, the blogs and things, and it was the most amazing thing I've ever seen. It's birders, very passionate birders, arguing over who'd seen the most birds. And it is the most absurd and wonderful conversation because there is so much passion, and they also recognise that this is a niche thing that they're arguing about.
And they might be sounding a little bit insane.
Yeah,
a little bit.
Yeah. Like people, and even people talking about how they missed the birth of their child because there was this bird.
Oh my God.
Yeah, amazing.
So is this like a crazy commitment to the environment or to competitive bird watching sport?
It's to birding, but I think birding is an entry point to being an environmentalist because once you develop that hobby, you like the environment because, the environment's protecting these birds and you see that the bird is just one facet of an ecosystem, but It is quite an addictive hobby. There is a piece in it. It is about going outside and looking up, just looking outside and seeing the world around you and finding stillness or quiet. And
that's quite beautiful.
Yeah, really beautiful aspects to it.
Probably not beautiful enough to miss the birth of your child.
No,
but that's just, a bit of a judgment call from me. Are the collections and recollections and lists of these birders helping conservation efforts?
Yeah, big time.
Yeah,
most of the data that the world has on birds and on ecosystem health are coming from citizen scientists, from birders, and even kids. There's citizen science apps where kids are going outside taking photos of birds that they see, and now so we know the locations of birds and that we know that, okay, there must be other species here. And so there's a huge amount. It's been, conservation has been propped up immensely by birders.
I want to ask you what your favourite chapter title is because mine is a toss-up between Wolves of Wall Street, Cowboys and Whale Poo and Invisible Creatures, The Curse of Ugly.
Oh, I actually like Invisible Creatures. I think I like The Giants Among Us. That was probably one of my favourite, probably because it was just my favourite chapter to write, talking about these sort of invisible or these giants of environmental movement that we've deemed invisible or that we've made invisible and their contributions. So, there was a herpes chapter too. I didn't mind that.
Yes. That was the fish herpes with the Deputy Prime Minister?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I did like that.
Quickly tell us how the Deputy Prime Minister and herpes made it into your book.
So Barnaby Joyce, who was the Deputy Prime Minister of Australia at the time, he announced that he wanted to give herpes to fish. And I just feel like this is a story that hasn't been covered nearly enough.
Yeah.
In Australia, carp are an invasive species and Barnaby Joyce was getting frustrated. It's impacting farmers, it's impacting communities. So his solution to get rid of this invasive species was to give carp herpes because herpes is fatal to carp. And what happens is carp, these freshwater fish, have orgies. And so when they have orgies, all you need to do is give one carp herpes and they spread the herpes rapidly. And the thinking was that he gives a couple of carp herpes and they'll spread it through their orgies and then they'll all die. And then that's our invasive species problem addressed. And so he was quite serious about it. I mean, nobody knows whether he wanted to directly transmit the herpes or not.
You wanted to get involved on a fish.
Yeah.
What is it? A fish? They have a little fish gangbang. I don't know you call it that.
Yes, fish.
What are you?
A fish orgy.
A fish orgy. Okay.
Anyway, he put $15 million behind it.
Oh, wow.
And still to this day, it has not worked.
Wouldn't you love to have a bad idea that attracts $15 million?
I know. Well,
Imagine
scientists said it had merit.
Oh, it does? Okay,
yeah,
so
they said it had
merit,
but it didn't work. And we have carp populations haven't decreased. And so I asked the question, I was exploring the topic of nature and politics. And so I asked the question, if Barnaby Joyce can't give fish herpes, what hope do we have for mobilising political action for nature? And so it was using this story to try and frame how some of the failures of the politics of environment.
You also talk about the corporate playbooks, which are obviously working against the environment, linking things like NFL, fossil fuels, cigarette ads. If there was to be an equation, or if you were to put a number on it, how many evil masterminds does it take to keep us confused and addicted?
Oh, God, not many.
Oh, really?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen who is sort of running the world at the moment. It's just a handful of pretty crazy people. I don't think it takes many. And even across the fossil fuel industry, this is just largely, it's a handful of executives with a huge amount of power, and then a lot of people that stand by and allow that to happen.
And it's orchestrated confusion, right?
Oh, absolutely. The marketing campaign behind it is incredible. So in World War I, soldiers used to wear pocket watches. They didn't wear wristwatches. So wristwatches were seen as effeminate frippery. Only women wore wristwatches in, the early 20th century. And this was a really big problem for watch marketers because they wanted everybody to wear wristwatches. So they ended up, this watch company ended up talking to, it was a guy named Edward Bernays, and they asked him if Edward Bernays could help them sell wristwatches to men. They wanted to make them manly. And so Edward Bernays, who was the nephew of Sigmund Freud, developed this campaign where he essentially was trying to make wristwatches more masculine. And so he's like, okay, who are the paragons of masculinity?
Soldiers.
Soldiers. So he went to soldiers and started telling them and creating these sort of these marketing materials that said soldiers were dying more because they didn't have wristwatches, because they were pausing to look at their pocket watches. And then, anyway, one thing led to the other. This marketing campaign took off, and then the US military ended up buying watches for men at war. And so once male soldiers started wearing wristwatches, then it was okay for men to wear them. And Edward Bernays is also the same person that has developed the playbook for what fossil fuel companies use. The NRL used it. Remember when the NRL said that players are getting brain damage because it's their own fault and they're not training properly?
Ah, okay, yes. Was this NFL or NRL? They both did it. The American one?
American.
NFL.
Yes, NFL.
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically they were like, oh, maybe, they've just got rattly brains genetically, or they're not training right or something, when really it couldn't possibly be, because this is a sport that is centred upon colliding with each other. Yeah. So it's that sort of playbook of like obfuscation, the denial, burying science, and then finding somebody else to blame. And that has been used by fossil fuel companies for decades now.
Every time I came across information like that just kind of makes my heart feel a bit heavy, I would then read about female great apes rubbing clitorises together to keep the peace. Is that what kept you going and kept you writing? That you would find something that makes you go, oh my God, this is so fucked.
Yeah.
And then, and this is so fascinating.
Yeah, absolutely. A combination of things. Some of the darker chapters, it was heavy to write, but then I would try to find ways to use a bit of dark comedy to lighten them up a little bit. And then other times it was finding these stories that were just so inspiring, that were showing how the extraordinary lengths people would go to protect other people and care about the world, but also just the wild stories that, like the clitoris of great apes, They're incredible.
Tell us a little bit about the clitorises of great apes.
The bonobo is a great ape and it looks a lot like a chimpanzee, so very similar to chimpanzees. But chimpanzees are very violent, aggressive species, so they rip each other to shreds. Bonobos, while they look similar, they have very peaceful societies. And that is because the bonobo is a feminist icon and basically they use their giant clitorises to form bonds with other females. So what's happened is the women get together and they rub their clitorises together as a form of friendship and social bonding, and that creates social cohesion within bonobo societies and at times allows them to overthrow the patriarchy. And it's a real thing, and it has created a peaceful society.
Maybe our democracy can learn a thing or two about that.
But it's been so positive for the evolution of that species that now the bonobo have evolved these giant clitorises, huge clitorises that waggle as they walk. If you saw a photo on Google, you'd be quite alarmed. But it's actually really interesting because so it was female scientists that discovered this. Of course, and they also discovered that snake had a clitoris. Males make up the majority of scientists that study snakes, but it was women that discovered that snakes had a clit, which I love.
Because male scientists are still looking for it.
Yeah, I couldn't find it. But it's actually helped us uncover all of this evolutionary bias around. So Charles Darwin used to refer to females of a species as wives, and he thought men were superior. And so he never really looked at the females of a species. So when we're talking about how, men are like wolves and dominant, it's because Charles Darwin only studied the male of a species and looked at, a small amount of species. He didn't actually look at all of the other species like hyenas where females are dominant, or whales where female knowledge is, an incredible part of their strength as a species. So it's helped us realise that there is actually bias in the way that we understand evolution and also bias in the way that we understand our social interactions today between men and women. Only of all of the studies on wildlife, only 7% are on the female of the species. The rest is male-centric. So our understanding even of male and female relationships today is male-centric through our evolutionary understandings.
You've called your book Nature's Last Dance. For a moment reading it, I wondered if it should have been called Kinky Conservation. But why is it Nature's Last Dance?
Yeah, I had some feedback on that. Some people hated it. It was trying to be both tragic and beautiful because that is, I think, the situation that we're living in today, our relationship with nature. We are, as humans, we are part of nature, and these stories that I'm telling, they are tragic, but they're also magnificent. And so that title was just aiming to capture that. Nature will persist with or without us, but it feels like if we keep going down the road that we're going, that it will be the last that we see of nature because we are just driving species and environments to extinction, really. So it was meant to be bittersweet.
I think bittersweet definitely captures the title of your book and the content. But you talk about, the subtitle is Tales of Wonder. What was your favourite tale of wonder?
I had the opportunity to interview a 12-year-old girl, and she's a forest defender in Tasmania, and she spends her afternoons after school taking adults out into the forest to show them what to protect and show them how she supports scientists at the Bob Brown Foundation. And she met a critically endangered owl and made a promise to protect the owl. And so and she is. That was probably one of my favourite stories. And interviewing her, I cried through the whole thing because she is just the most incredible human, and there are so many like that. And so I feel a lot of faith that we have this amazing generation, or not even generation, just these amazing individuals who are extraordinary and they really care and they're not ever going to stop fighting. I think we've already proven in the environmental sector we're very relentless. We don't give up.
Yeah. Like yourself, you're extraordinary. You won't stop fighting. It's been a pleasure chatting with you, Natalie.
Thank you.
That's Natalie Kyriacou, author of Nature's Last Dance and environmentalist who happens to have those fancy 3 letters behind her name, OAM, Order of Australia recipient. It's now the weekend list, and it's personally my favourite time of the week, and it's probably your favourite time of the week. It's because Helen Smith and I, we get to hang out, we get to talk about what we've been getting up to, what we think works, what we're enjoying watching and eating and listening to, and why you should follow suit. Helen Smith, what have you got?
My first recommendation is a recommendation, but also a little bit of a hate watch. So it's the Real Housewives of London. Now, I love Housewives.
You've always loved Housewives.
Love Housewives. I can't get enough.
Okay.
But this is a brand new group of housewives, and it's actually taken 20 years for the American franchise, the reality franchise, to reach the UK. This is the first one.
Right.
Yeah.
And I'd love to say because the UK are too highbrow, but they bring us Geordie Shore and all these other really trashy reality TV.
But I think the difference is these are the rich people, the upper echelon that would never dare, like all that. And now here we are. It must be dire times.
Yeah.
Where we've got Real Housewives of London. And I really liked this line from The Guardian. It said, "Finally, West London's ex-model community has a viable retirement plan." And I was like, checks out. And it does check out.
Okay.
The housewives, they tick all the boxes. They're super, super rich. There's lots of drama about problems that are absolutely nothing. And, they've got all the work done.
Will I know any of them? Will I know any of them?
I didn't.
Yeah, right.
And for me, I was like, shocked because I know quite a few of those circles. But they're all friends with people from like Real Housewives of New York or Real Housewives of, I think one of them was Beverly Hills. So they all know each other. They're all those high socialite circles. We wouldn't know them, man, because we're not, multi-millionaire billionaires. That's why we're not in the same circles. I don't know why.
Yeah, fair enough.
But when I was watching this, I was so entertained, but I was, for the first time watching Real Housewives, I was thinking, this is wild. The world is literally on fire, and these women are having an International Women's Day promo event for a luxury beauty brand.
Oh,
and I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah, so out of touch.
Yeah.
So privileged. Yeah.
Like, it was the first time that I was like, it really showed the wealth disparities, and it really showed like, oh my God, like what is happening? But I also think it was their love of the monarchy that I was kind of like, what the, like this is real.
Yeah.
But hey.
So you continue to watch it even though you hate watching it?
Oh, because it's just insane.
But do you hate watch the other ones, or is this one in particular?
I still love watching it, but it's more of a disbelief, I think.
Yeah.
That about what's going on. But yeah.
And where can you watch it if you want?
Hayu. You can watch it on Hayu.
Okay.
But look, I would love some listeners to watch it and DM us. Let me know if you felt the same.
Okay. Well, my recommendation is probably going to highlight why I don't watch any of these Real Housewives or know any of them because of what I get up to in my spare time, because I am going to recommend. I have been finding that whenever I'm feeling overwhelmed, the only way I can ground myself is to literally put myself on the ground. And so wherever I am, I just lay down on the floor.
Wherever?
Yeah. Well, I try not to do it in the middle of the street or out in public. But, if I'm somewhere where I feel safe, I will just lay down on the floor.
Yeah.
And I lay down to just take a moment. I don't realize I'm physically like trying to ground myself. Things feel overwhelming. And I just lay down and I breathe. And this is not recommended by any mental health expert or whatever, but what I just find, it's just my moment of mindfulness and a moment to stop and get perspective.
Yeah.
Like how big is what I am feeling? And sometimes when you're down there, you literally do get a different perspective. And I get up when I'm ready to keep going.
Well,
it's my grounding thing, and I do not recommend doing it, in public or in the middle of the road. But I just find it works for me because, you were just talking about the world feels like it's on fire. People have real problems. And sometimes I'm like, the enormity of this feels overwhelming. I don't know what to do. And this is something that is approved by my therapist, to stop and actually feel what you're feeling in your body. Like I lay down and I'm like, okay, so I'm feeling this stiffness in my leg, or I'm feeling this weird clench in my stomach or whatever. And it's just my version of vertical horizontal, not vertical, horizontal mindfulness. And it's good for your back. I lay flat.
Yeah, it is.
Like flat on my back. sometimes for half an hour before I get up again.
Damn. I'm
know.
like, why isn't Aunt replying to me? She's laying on the ground again.
Yeah, she's on the ground.
Oh, damn it. Sorry. No, don't disturb her. She will get up.
I'll start doing it around the studio and HR will get concerned. Antoinette's on the floor again.
Oh, guys. There she goes.
That is my recommendation. And I would love to hear from you guys listening. If you do anything like that, to just reconnect with your body or to take a moment, or if I'm just kind of wacky and doing this on my own.
No.
Let us know. Let us know in the comments. Hit us up in Instagram on the DMs.
I feel like people definitely relate to that.
Okay.
But, yeah. Moving on. My next recommendation is actually about always getting a second opinion.
Okay.
And when it comes to, this is very, very particular, when it comes to, for example, private health, or when it comes to something you're getting done.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but I feel like sometimes you go, oh, the expert or the doctor or the specialist is going to want my best interest at heart.
Yeah.
No. They want money.
Have you, is there something that's happened?
Yes, there is. And I'm going to give an amazing example of girl math money that I never had, and now I do. So I had to get TMJ things for my jaw, right? So I had to get Botox in my jaw.
Because you clench a lot.
Because I clench a lot, blah, 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 grinding my teeth, tension headaches. It's not great.
Yeah.
And I had to get a little night guard as well.
Yeah.
So I'm doing the right thing. I'm sorting it out. The first specialist I go to quoted me $3,220 for the Botox and the night guard.
Right.
And I'm like, damn.
That's a lot of money. Yeah.
Yeah. And you don't get hardly any of that in private health because the Botox not considered private health.
Mm.
And I go, that's not great. And so then I Googled around, looked around, and then I found this other place eventually, and I got exactly the same stuff done, everything done for $953.
No way.
Yeah.
Was the person doing it a hairdresser at the
No,
other place?
yeah, she was a dentist, a proper
I'm just saying
dentist.
this is a big difference.
Yes, that's what I mean. It was crazy difference. Like I'm talking literally thousands of dollars.
So both were dentists?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Both,
I was going to say,
both were specialists.
Right, because I was going to say when you said shop around for an opinion, I'm like, well, that's a luxury not everybody can afford because every time you go to a doctor again, if you have to pay a gap or a specialist, you've got to pay again.
Well, I still had to pay $300 for this first appointment from the other place.
Yeah.
But then I called around and I said, I explained to them the situation and said, look, I can't pay another one, but get a second opinion, ask around if you feel like there's an icky feeling.
Yeah.
My recommendation is we never do it. Always go with your gut. But
Yeah,
that's my
okay.
recommendation this week. If you're just like, hang on, that doesn't feel right, sit in the moment, get a second opinion on something, chat to someone else, call your friend up, and then move on.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like that. Okay. Get a second opinion. It actually could save you money.
Yeah.
And be, the right thing for your health. All right. My recommendation is, it's going to sound like, oh, why is she recommending this? I'm recommending The Handmaid's Tale because I stopped at about season, I don't know what, right? So I got well into it and I think I watched the first 4 seasons. And for those who may be living under a rock and don't know what The Handmaid's Tale is, it's that American dystopian television series based on a novel by the same name. And it has been huge. Like it's
massive.
About a totalitarian society which subjects fertile women called the handmaids to essentially childbearing slavery. It's dark. And I just stopped watching it. I don't know if it's because it fizzled out a little bit for me or it got too dark. Like
I stopped watching it season 3 or 4 as well.
Yeah. Okay. So for some reason, recently I started to rewatch it because I thought, you know what, I am not feeling dark enough. I need something darker in my life.
Yeah.
And so I've been binging season 5 and 6 and now I'm thinking and I'm kicking myself as to why I stopped watching. So it may just be that they upped the ante or they changed script writers, but it is fantastic.
I heard they changed producers.
Okay, maybe that's what it is.
But I've also heard this from people that it gets better. So
It's
5 and
so
6.
good. It is so good. It is so good.
I got to do it.
And characters that you once absolutely loathed somehow are starting to have redeeming features. They're trying to fix this screwed up society that they know that they've created. And so
Oh, wow.
they're trying to, it's called kind of like Hong Kong, Dubai, the the Gilead.
What?
Yeah.
Like completely flip it on its
Try
head.
to flip it on its head and go, no, it's okay, guys. We're going to kind of like pretend we don't have all these human rights abuses and introduce capitalism.
Put a bit of bling on it.
Yeah, put a bit of bling and a bit of democracy light on it.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I highly recommend Handmaid's Tale.
Great.
All right. That's a very varied recommendations from us this week.
Bit rogue.
Take from it what you will, guys. We do love to hear your feedback. So please, as well as like, subscribe and share with all of your mates and even some of your frenemies. Tell us what you think about this interview with Natalie Kyriacou. Tell us also what you think about the weekend list and how you feel about laying on the floor for no real reason other than to digest how you're feeling. That is all from me and Helen. I will be back next weekend, but of course on Monday the team will join you with the headlines and a fascinating deep dive straight to your headphones. Take care of one another. Be kind. Chat to you soon.
Listener.